Hello, this is a video to explain how to take the Odyssey clutch hub apart. Now, normally, one of the beauties of this hub is you shouldn't have to take it apart. So please only think about taking it apart if you really need to. You can adjust the gap through the little hole, and you can also add extra grease that way if you think it needs more grease. Just squirt some in there, work it around, squirt some in there, work it around. Okay, so assuming you've been in contact with warranty and we've asked you to take the hub apart, or you just really want to take it apart for some reason, here's how you proceed. Obviously, first of all, take the guard off because you're not going to need that. It just pulls off. Now, before you try and remove the axle or anything, you want to make sure that the hub is disengaged. So this is a left-hand drive hub, so I turn it that way, it's engaged. I turn it all the other way so I know it's fully disengaged. Let me show you why you need to do that. Okay, here's the cut open hub. Now, as you can see, this is disengaged. This is a right-hand drive one. If I engage it, you're obviously in a position where all this is locked out. Once you've got the wheel off the bike and stuff like that, if you want to get this driver out, if you start banging on the back of here, everything's locked up and it's not going to go anywhere. So please, before you start, make sure you back it off so it's fully disengaged. Okay. Now, if when you back it off and you've got the hub off the bike, if you can pull the driver out like I can with this one, then that's not right. It shouldn't do that. But if you can pull it out, you can keep unscrewing it and you can remove the driver. But normally you shouldn't be able to do that with hand pressure. You can on a typical KHE type hub because they set the tolerance there very loose. But on the clutch hub, it should be tight. So you shouldn't be able to do that. But if you can, that's how you get your driver out. Now, let's assume you can't. So you've made sure it's disengaged. Now we can remove the axle. Right, so we've got the hub here. And I'm just going to pop it in the vise. Just rest it in the vise. I'm not clamping it down, just so it's supported. Okay, so we'll remove everything from the non-drive side and the drive side. Just take these bits all the way off. Sorry, I don't know how to do any fancy fast forwarding, so you just have to bear with me while I do this. Okay, so that's that side off. That's the non-drive side off. And we'll just whip off the drive side. Now, if the only reason you're taking the hub apart is because the driver's feeling a bit rough, what you could do at this point is just pull this drive side collar off. It literally just pulls off. And you can see on there, it should be nice and greasy. And you can see the needle roller bearing in there. And there's an O-ring here that helps form a seal. So if that's all messy, you can just wipe all that off. Pull the needle bearing out of there with something hook shaped like an old spoke. Clean it all off, re-grease it, and put it back together again. If your problem is just that the driver's a little bit rough, that'll help enormously. Okay, but if you're taking the axle out, take the collar off anyway. So we've now got both collars off and everything like that, and the hub is nice and simply there. Okay, so in here you can see the circlip. Now, if you're going to take this bearing out, that circlip has to come off. Now, the right tool for this job is a pair of circlip pliers. You can also use something like a screwdriver to get under behind here and pull it off, or a fine pair of needle nose pliers. But circlip pliers are very common. They're quite useful if you ever mend your own car or anything. So you just squeeze in the two tabs and you can remove the circlip like that. Sometimes it will go flying, so be ready for that and try and catch it and not let it roll away under a bench. Okay, now the circlip is out, you can drift the axle out this way. So we're going to push it all the way through the hub that way. But make sure that the hub is disengaged. As I say, this is a left-hand drive hub. So that's fully disengaged now. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to support the hub in the vise on a bit of rag to stop it getting scratched up. And then I'm going to put a bolt back in this side and tap it through. So I don't want the washer or the collar. I've literally just got the bolt from the drive side and put it in there. And it only needs to go in about 6 or 7 turns, just so it's fully engaged. There we go, that's nice and solid in there. And then we're going to hit the end of there and it's going to drive the axle all the way through the hub, and this bearing is going to come out at the same time. So as I say, put a rag or something between the hub and the vise, and it must be, you need to make sure there's enough space on the vise for this bearing to come out. If you put something there, you obviously can't drive the bearing all the way out. Okay, so just put your rag over there, put your axle in, and then you just need to find your hitting device. Now, I've got a nice copper mallet. If you haven't got a copper mallet, you can use a wooden mallet. If you haven't got a wooden mallet, you can use a hammer with a bit of wood in between, just to protect your bolt. You can hit it directly with a hammer if you like, but it's not a good idea. So a few blows, not super hard, and you can see the axle is moving through already. And after a while, you're all the way through. Okay, so we've now removed the axle, and it will come, now obviously it won't come out all the way because the bolt's hitting there. So you need to just take the bolt out. Okay, so you pull out the axle. Now you'll notice that the clutch lump itself has stayed in there because it's still threaded into the driver. Okay, so there's all your bits. This should all be nicely greased. You can never put too much grease on here, so just go crazy with it. Okay, so we've done with the axle for now. And next thing we need to do is just pop your finger down inside there and effectively back pedal. And as you back pedal, the clutch lump, which should be super greasy, will just pop out like that, and you've got the clutch lump. Okay, now the only part left in is the driver with, if you can see inside there, the needle bearings in there. And you can just drop it on the floor if you want. So, try to avoid doing that. So, if you need to remove your driver, which as I say, you should only do if it's going to be replaced or something like that. If you need to replace it for some reason, like if you've used a very worn chain and it's worn the teeth away and it needs replacing. But obviously, if you need to replace the needle, say just slide out with your finger. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and remove the driver. So it might be that this bearing here, this angular contact bearing, needs replacing because you've had the hub a long time or something like that. Now to drive all this out, all we need is something that will rest on the end of the driver and push it through nicely. Now, again, we're going to put the rag in the vise and make sure it's wide enough that we're supporting the hub, or if it's still in a complete wheel, the wheel wide enough for the driver to come out. We don't want to be hitting the driver just into the surface. Okay, now you need something to drive this through, and what I find good for this is sockets. So here I have an ordinary spark plug socket which I can pop on the end of the driver there. Now you want to make sure that that's not touching. It's not so big that it's going to jam over the threads on the outside of the driver and damage them. And you can always pop it the other way around if that feels better. So I think in this case that's quite good. And then this shouldn't be very hard to drive out, but it wants to go nice and straight. And as you hit it, just hit it gently and keep them straight hits. Let's try the other round, I might see better. Now, sorry, I said it needs to clear the driver. Obviously, it needs to clear this bearing. So can you see that bearing is being driven out? It may drive this bearing out, or it may drive the driver out from inside the bearing. And you can hear it's making good progress. There's no rush. We're nearly all the way out now. No problem to keep checking it. There we go. So without any drama, that's all the way out. So then you've got these two pieces, this piece out separately. So you can see we've got the bearing here, which should be nice tight fit on the driver and the driver itself. Now, that should normally be it. If you do need to get this driver off here, then you can put it in the vise again and support. The bearing is a tiny bit bigger than the driver. You get some support in there and you can just tap it through. Okay, I hope this makes sense. I'll do a separate video putting it all back together again. Thanks a lot. Goodbye.